how difficult it was to create urban Gujarati film when things like that didn't exist in Gujarat.
It was extremely challenging, and the challenge doesn't begin outside, it begins within.
Why can't the urban movies be based in the heartland of Gujarat?
अरे मुझे अगर रूरल समझ में आएगा तो मैं रूरल बनाऊंगा, मुझ पे थोपो मत कि यार तुम जीन्स में डाल दिया तो उसको अर्बन बोल दिया, मेरे को जो समझ में आएगा वो मैं बनाऊंगा.
You know, when we saw your first movie, it was like an aha moment for us. We thought Gujarati movies will change now forever. I don't find Gujarati movies as exciting, as they were, when we were watching Side Raju, Kevi Rite Jaish and Yaar.
There is a huge chunk of people, I don't know why they want to make it. They end up making a film. People are making films with some frivolous budgets. There is a lot of ईर्ष्या भावना. हम क्या कर रहे हैं, एक दूसरे को नीचे उतारने में लगे हुए हैं. तो मैं तो कई बार देखता हूँ दूर से लोग हंसते होंगे हम पे. Other problem with Gujarati film industry is that producers are not being repeated. So people nowadays get entertained in 15 seconds on reels and they get to swipe, cut. When I saw this film recently that got released, Animal, I saw these are extended glorified reels. Sandeep Reddy made the film that he wanted to make.
After the movie releases, everybody's in that competition of showing bigger and better numbers. The 1 day 100 crores, 5 day 500 crores, 10 day 1200 crores and all that. So are those numbers really true?
There is no smoke without fire.
Welcome to another episode of WisdomCast. Today we have a very special guest, a visionary filmmaker, Mr. Abhishek Jain, who does not require much of an introduction, by the way. He transformed Gujarati film industry with his first movie, Kevi Rite Jaish. Yes, with his debut movie, he changed the way Gujarati films are being looked at. And today we are going to discuss how he, as filmmaker, thinks about Gujarati cinema, what he thinks about the current state of the Gujarati film industry and how it can change, how it can improve. We'll also get to know about what he's currently working on and his thoughts about the art and craft of filmmaking. So let's straight dive into it. Put on your headphones and enjoy the show. Abhishek, welcome to WisdomCast. Very happy to have you here. It's quite an established fact that you changed Gujarati film industry with your first movie. It's one thing being in the industry and going with the flow and, contributing with your art. But it's totally another thing to transform the industry. And it's really extraordinary to transform the industry with your debut movie. So I really want to understand, how did you conceive this film, Kevi Rite Jaish? The process of making the film and what was the journey after the release? If you can very briefly tell us about that.
First of all, I'm quite grateful to the audience and, the people of Gujarat who loved the film so much that it set out to be the trend setter or, the game changer, as you may call it. So Kevi Rite Jaish was never attempted as a game changer. It was a simple film that I wanted to make. All my life, I've lived here in Ahmedabad. I have been around Gujaratis who, are willing to go to the USA at any cost. And this is back then, this is now. It's the same thing. They are dire and desperate to go to the USA. And I have come across those stories. So I thought that if I have to tell a Gujarati story, if I have to make a Gujarati film, then that story has to be from the heartland. It has to be about something that I have been born and brought up with. This is something that came to my mind. I myself was trying to migrate. I mean, after your 12th standard, you tend to give your, those TOEFL, SAT, CAT, some exams. तो वो मैंने भी दिए और मैंने भी कोशिशें की और मुझे समझ में आया कि यार ये तो बहुत बड़ा थोड़ा एक पागलपन सा ही चल रहा है. So when I was in the film school, I was planning to, make something and, I wanted to make a Gujarati film. This idea came up and I'm quite fascinated with the idea of migration. I'm quite fascinated because my dad has migrated from Rajasthan to here. And I've seen a lot of my friends who have been in government jobs or whose fathers have been in government jobs and they have migrated places every 4 years. So for them, what is the real identity of, sticking to the roots? So all of those things kind of, fascinate me. So I thought that I should make a film like this and I set out to make it. It was a great feeling once the film released, because when the film released, there were only 4 or 5 shows across Gujarat that the film got. And it was only the audience who kind of lifted the film up to their arms, lapped it up, nurtured the film. And it ran for 112 days. And by the end of its run, it had already crossed more than, I think, 120, 130 shows, which in today's time is nothing for a Gujarati film. They have crossed way number of shows. But way back in 2012, when no one wanted to go and watch a Gujarati film in multiplexes, pay say 200 rupee to watch a Gujarati film, they ended up going to multiplexes. I never did anything for that. I just made a film and I left it out there. it was people who actually brought film to the life, and whatever I am today is because of them and that journey that Kevi Rite Jaish took.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the product was that good that people kept demanding, right? And from 4 shows, it went up to 120 shows at the end of the run. Wow. Abhishek, with your credentials, I mean, you have assisted Mr. Sanjay Leela Bhansali, with his movie, and you were there in Whistling Woods, and Bollywood is very accessible from, I mean, coming from that kind of a film school. You could have easily made your career in Bollywood. You could have easily gotten a break there. Why Gujarati movies? Why come back here?
It's a very nice question because a lot of people think that you kind of thought of Gujarati films as your stepping stone. तो वो ऐसा नहीं होता है, मतलब वो क्रिकेट में होता है कि आप रणजी खेल के इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट खेलने जा सकते हो. फिल्मों में ऐसा नहीं होता है. फिल्में आप बनाते हो क्योंकि आपको कोई बात कहनी है, आपको कोई कहानी कहनी है. आप आप ऐसा नहीं सोचते हो, इतना टैक्टफुली नहीं सोचते हो कि अच्छा मैं अभी गुजराती में बनाऊंगा, उसके बाद वो फिल्म हिट होगी, उसके बाद में मैं उसको स्टेपिंग स्टोन समझ के हिंदी में बना जाऊंगा. सच काइंड ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स डजंट रन इन अ फिल्म मेकर्स माइंड. आई होप इट डजंट, बट इट डिडंट रन इन माई माइंड. व्हेन आई वाज इन द फिल्म स्कूल वी वर ऑलवेज टोल्ड दैट those stories that you've lived with, that you're born and brought up with, something that creates that sense of anger, anguish, a willingness or a desperation to tell, is the kind of stories that you should end up saying, telling, or making films of. And because I've lived all my life here, and because we are not primarily ancestrally Gujaratis, I get the benefit of being an objective Gujarati. So I look at Gujaratis in a very different and objective way, Gujarati culture in a very different way. It's so fascinating to study each Gujarati, and these are the stories that I've lived with all my life, in my childhood. This place, this city, this hawa of this city, right? So if I have to make a film, I would definitely end up making a film in, which is in Gujarati language, set up in a city like Ahmedabad. Happened so that we marketed it as a urban Gujarati film, because as a marketeer, the other side of my life is that I am a marketeer, I am an advertising filmmaker. So other side of my life was that if we have to market it, how do we pitch it differently? So the pitch was an urban Gujarati film. But I think with whatever you said, coming back to your question, I still have an option of going out and making a Hindi film. It's just about the day I feel like telling a story, which is for a larger audience, I'll go and make it in Hindi. If I feel like this is something which is so rooted to Gujarat and this should be told to the Gujarati audiences, I will make it in Gujarati. So in the past also I made a Hindi film, and I've also worked in Hindi projects, and I've also worked in Gujarati. I don't think cinema has that language barrier.
Yeah, I mean, you were probably one of the first ones, who were migrating from Gujarat to the Hindi film industry to, look at Gujarat as a market, and thought you could tell stories here. So when you started, right, it was, as you said, Urban Gujarati film, and it was technically the first Urban Gujarati film that people would have seen. How difficult it was to create Urban Gujarati film when things like that didn't exist in Gujarat?
Oh, I think it was extremely challenging. It was extremely challenging. And the challenge doesn't begin outside, it begins within. You have to keep on telling yourself, convincing yourself that, okay, you want to make a Gujarati film. Imagine I can take you back 12 years back from now, I think rather 14 years back. This was in 2010 when there were not many Gujarati films being made. Also, films were not really an exposed culture or environment in Gujarat. Okay, we always thought of we always thought of films as something that is happening in Bombay, not in our culture. सो हर रोज सुबह उठ करके आप अपने आप को ये कहने की कोशिश करो कि हाँ मैं गुजराती फिल्म बनाना चाहता हूँ. वहाँ से स्ट्रगल शुरू होती है. वहाँ आपको हर रोज़ अपने आप को कन्विंस करना है. आपने जो वो प्लंज लिया है, जो फियरलेसनेस है, उसको हमेशा एक लेवल और बढ़ावा देना है. उसको बोला नहीं भाई तू सही चल रहा है, कोई बात नहीं, कूद जा. So that is where it all started. And it all ended up to the moment where the film released, And in this journey, I had to convince everyone. Myself, my family members, my friends and colleagues, my cast and crew, my media people, and eventually my audiences. And I think every box got ticked. It was only because there was this strong urge and conviction with utmost intent and honest attempt that I want to tell a story in Gujarati language. So I think that all worked for me.
Yeah, so I mean, with Wrong Side Raju, that won you a national award as a producer, right? So after that, what was the journey like? So after Wrong Side Raju, what has been the journey for you?
So Wrong Side Raju didn't do really well on box office. So we were quite, I would say disappointed that had this film worked really well, it would have opened up another new genre for us. But I think somewhere we went a little overboard or whatever. We might have done something wrong. That is why it didn't work amongst the people. I can't blame the audiences for that. But after Wrong Side Raju, we thought that let's take a break. Let's take a break from making Gujarati films. Anyways, we have been making advertisement films. So our ball was always rolling and we were earning our bread. Anyways, we still do that. But meanwhile, with Bayar, we got a lot of opportunities to make Hindi films.
How is that like? How from Bay are you, those doors open for you?
Because a lot of people wanted to make a remake of Bayar. With that intent, we got in touch with a lot of producers out there in Bollywood, and but we didn't want to remake our own film. Like मेरे को नहीं मज़ा आता, मैं खुद की फिल्म रीमेक करूँ उसका कोई मज़ा नहीं है. तो I thought that after, and I was also busy with Wrong Side Raju. So post Wrong Side Raju, we got in touch with them again, and we said that okay, we want to make a film in Hindi language, and this is the kind of story that we have. If you guys are interested, we can make it. And that was not Gujarat, Gujarat rooted story. It was, as I mentioned, that it was for a bigger audience. So we wanted to make it in Hindi. So that journey started. In that journey, I came across a lot of people whom I felt were probably not right for me, or we didn't really gel well or whatever. And then I realized that, actually hopped out of two films which were to be made in Hindi. I can't name them now, but two films which had a great announcement also, had a great cast also. So, and cast was like superb and all of that, but I kind of hopped out of it because I didn't feel it right. I was not convinced about it. And this is what, making Gujarati film gives you. You are so convinced about making the film that you want to make, that even if in Hindi you have to succumb to something lower than your conviction, you don't want to do it. So I skipped those two films, and then the third film, which I wanted to make, happened, and we made Hum Do Hamare Do. So 2021, in middle of the COVID and lockdown, this film got released. Apparently, it was supposed to be a theatrical release because it's a family film. It was also an ode from the kind of films that I have seen all my life, family films, say Suraj Barjatya films or films or like. So, but it never happened, and we had to release it on a platform. And yeah, so after Wrong Side Raju, the first thing that we did was a Hindi film.
Abhishek, when we have a genius filmmaker like you, of course, we want to have a very detailed discussion about the craft of filmmaking. But before that, I want to have a very serious conversation about the Gujarati film industry and the current state of it. When we saw your first movie, it was like an aha moment for us. We thought Gujarati movies will change now forever. Things were looking great. And after your first movie, a lot of great movies came from different production houses. Amazing movies were released. But before we realized, we went into a stagnation mode where most of the Gujarati films started looking the same. The star cast, the dialogues, the screenplay, the plots, everything started looking very similar. And then comes Wrong Side Raju, which introduced another genre, to the industry, as you rightly mentioned. And then again, we went back to the stagnation mode. And right now, to be honest, I feel it's pretty monotonous and I feel things are stuck. I don't find Gujarati movies as exciting, as they were, when we were watching Wrong Side Raju, Kevi Rite Jaish and Yaar. So my question here is that why is that the industry is not able to sustain the progress that somebody like you initiates? Why do we keep going back and why do we get stuck again and again?
I think there are a lot of reasons. One cannot pinpoint on one reason. But in a way, if you look at any film industry, they will always have this ups and downs. They will always go through this one leap ahead, two steps back, one bigger leap ahead, three steps back. What we see right now, because we are sitting in Ahmedabad and we see Gujarati films so closely that I'm sure you have friends and relatives and all working in Gujarati films and all that. But when a film comes from, say, a state like Kerala or a state like Tamil Nadu, then you feel that, oh, they are making such great and they are making so many hit films. But we don't realize that in a week, there are 4 or 5 Tamil films that release. Only one in 1 month grabs your attention. And because there are these 10 films around the year that grab your attention, you feel like, oh my God, they are the most booming industry and they are churning hit after hit. That's not the case. Nor is this the case with Hollywood also, for that matter. I mean, Hollywood इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि अपने लिए वो एपिटोम हो जाता है, ठीक है. तो वैसा नहीं है. हर इंडस्ट्री इस तरह से ही ऑपरेट करती है. बट गुजराती फिल्म इंडस्ट्री हैव देयर ओन यूनिक प्रॉब्लम्स. Initially the problem was about content, as you rightly mentioned, that everything was so similar and same that people also got a little fatigued. Now there is no problem with content. There is some great content being made. Now the problem is about intent. So content is sorted, intent is not yet sorted.
Intent of who?
I'll tell you. So there is a huge chunk of people, I don't know why they want to make a film. They end up making a film. Either they are seeking fame, कि चलो फिल्म डायरेक्टर बनने से 4 प्रीमियर में फ़ोटो लगेंगे. वो जो सोशल वैलिडेशन है, वो जो सोशल करेंसी कमाने का जो पूरा, मुझे ऐसा लगता है, और वो दिखता भी है साफ, ठीक है. हम तो फिल्म मेकर से तो क्या थोड़ा सा फिल्टर अपने आप निकल जाता है, आपको समझ में आ जाता है इंसान का चरित्र क्या है. तो कुछ ऐसे लोग हैं जिनको ये सोशल वैलिडेशन चाहिए या सोशल करेंसी कमानी है, उस चक्कर में फिल्म बनाने जाते हैं. बट फिल्म एक बहुत बड़ा यज्ञ है, you know, and there goes a lot in making a film. It's not only about that individual's persistence and his own hard work. There is a huge unit of people who is working towards making a film. And also more than that, out there in the universe, if you're there to tell stories, you better tell a story which is worth telling. Okay. So अगर intent सही ना हो, अगर intent honest ना हो, intent ये हो कि मुझे एक fame कमा लेनी है, या इंटेंट वो है कि मुझे 2 नंबर का पैसा 1 नंबर कर लेना है, इंटेंट ये है कि मेरे को किसी तरह के व्यक्ति को खुश करना है, या वो संस्था हो सकती है, या वो कोई पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा हो सकता है, उसको खुश करना है. अगर ये सारे फ्रिल इंटेंट्स होते हैं तो वो फिल्म अपने आप में ही अपना जो भविष्य है वो तय कर लेती है. एंड वी ऑल नो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ फ्यूचर दोज काइंड ऑफ फिल्म्स हैव. So I think Gujarati films have right now, and there I can talk like an entire day about what is happening in Gujarati films. But to keep it very short and articulated, I think more than content right now, the intent is an issue. People are making films with some frivolous budgets, and we are not understanding that we are not a Telugu film industry who can make a Bahubali of 100 crores. Not that anyone is making a Gujarati film of 100 crores, but whatever in that proportion they are making, we have to think of it that our audience is right now very naive. They are at a stage which is, you know, they are yet to flourish. 6 crore Gujaratis or whatever that number is, how many of them actually want to go and watch a Gujarati film? Our attempt should be dhire, make a dent, so that one day you can penetrate. But right now what we did was that we did one big boom dent, and now we want to just penetrate. And in that intent we are making films of crores and crores of rupees, which won't, on paper itself, on day 0, before even starting the pre-production, we know that this is not going to fetch you box office recovery. And if you don't fetch box office recovery, there are no producers going to come back. The other problem with Gujarati film industry is that producers are not being repeated. एक आता है, वो कूद के अंदर घुसता है, उसको लगता है कि 5 फुट गहरा गड्ढा है, लेकिन जैसे अंदर घुसता है वो पूरे खाई में चला जाता है, वो खाई से बेचारा बाहर ही नहीं आ पाता. तो फिर क्यों कोई बनाएगा Gujarati films?
Do Gujarati movies make money?
Gujarati films do make money. As much of the proposition that a Bollywood film makes money. अगर बॉलीवुड में साल में 100 फिल्में रिलीज होती हैं तो उसमें 3 या 5 फिल्में जो हैं वो पैसा रिकवर कर लेती है, ऐसा मेरा मानना है. हालांकि बॉलीवुड में एवेन्यूज बहुत ज़्यादा है पैसा रिकवर करने के, तो वो एवरेजेस आउट किए जा सकते हैं. गुजराती फिल्म्स ऑल्सो डू मेक मनी, बट वॉट काइंड ऑफ फिल्म इज मेकिंग मनी इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. You know, if we go back and check the kind of films that have made huge amount of money, that kind of audience has liked that kind of film. Now that also poses a question about what is our cultural index like. You know, as a nation, as a state, what kind of films do we consider when we want to watch with our families? It's in a way quite scary.
Abhishek, I feel, and I could be completely wrong about this, I feel there's a lot of brain drain happening from Gujarat to the Bollywood, because of course, you know, if somebody is getting into this craft, you know, people want to make a career in a bigger industry where they have, you know, larger scope. So do you think that affects us? Do we have enough technical talent in Gujarat to make great movies?
I could have said yes to your statement had this been 5 years back. One, COVID did a great job. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but COVID hampered us, a lot of us. And, you know, destructed a lot of families and lives and all of that. But when you look at some things, you also look at the positive side of it. COVID brought a lot of people back home and they found peace here. Secondly, lot of young people now do not want to get into the rut and the rigmarole of Bombay, Bollywood fascination. So they are ready to come back and work here, which is great. This same thing 5 years back, when we were making Wrong Side Raju for that matter, our DOP was not from Gujarat. So the cinematographer was not from Gujarat. Now if I want to make a film, I have at least got 5 phone numbers to my speed dial that I can call and say that chalo apne ek film bana rahe hain. And they are all from Gujarat. So brain drain is not happening, but yes, to one extent, a kind of brain drain is happening because people are also not finding the worth of their work here. You know, if there is a great actor, for example, how much stuff would he get to work in around the year? So he would probably go and, rent out a space in Bombay also and juggle between Bombay and Ahmedabad or Bombay and Gujarat, whatever. So that kind of brain drain is happening. But if they are given a good choice, if they are given a good script, I think they will come and lap up to what they are getting here in Gujarati.
Coming to scripts, Abhishek, I feel writing has been affected across all film pockets, whether it's Gujarat, Bollywood, or South. In Gujarat, especially, I feel there's a substantial room for improvement when it comes to screenplay. What's your view on it?
Good that in one line you talked about writing and you talked about screenplay, because I have come across a lot of people in Gujarat. They feel that film writing is as good as writing a novel, writing a column, writing a post on Instagram, or writing a love letter. And with all due respect to all these forms and formats, screenplay writing is a different craft. It is not something that you are born with. कई लोगों को ये भ्रम है कि अरे राइटिंग कोई सिखा थोड़ी सकता है, वो तो अंदर से आता है, आप उसके साथ पैदा होते हो, वो आर्ट है, कला है, होगी. लेकिन स्क्रीन प्ले राइटिंग एक क्लिनिकल प्रोसेस है, क्योंकि आप स्क्रीन के लिए लिख रहे हो, तो उसमें क्राफ्ट है, उसमें कसब है.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools involved.
बिल्कुल. तो वो सीखना जरूरी है. दैट ओपननेस इज वेरी रेयर. हाँ, बिकॉज आई फील फिल्म इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ music which is so rhythmic. It's just that instead of poetry, it has got prose in it. You know, look at Vishal Bharadwaj films, or look at a Satyajit Ray film, or look at a Kieslowski film. They all have a rhythm to it. And on the hindsight, if you look, they are all piece of music. It's just that it's not got a poetry and lyrics and singing to it. It's got, prose to it. And that rhythm, जैसे म्यूजिक के संगीत के लिए एक रिदम की जरूरत है, वैसे ही स्क्रीन प्ले के रिदम की जरूरत है. बट वो ओपननेस टू लर्न. We have conducted so many workshops in the past. People come and they feel that either the workshop is not worth it. So others feel that, okay, this workshop is for, for the ones who want to do it permanently. But, I think that approach towards learning of screenplay is very necessary. And then you can bring stories from wherever. You adapt it from one of your literature pieces. You create a fictional story of your own, whatever then you do. But you have to understand the language of screenplay.
Right, and I feel with the cultural richness that we have in India, a lot of stories can be brought to life if we have the right writers who can write great screenplays.
We can just sit and aspire and faff about it that अरे we have got such great culture and such great literature. अरे है तो उसके ऊपर थोड़ी दब के बैठे रहोगे. निकालो ना उसको बाहर. धूल जो उस पर लगी हुई है उसको झटको और उसको बनाओ. सिर्फ बोलने से और वो गाथा गाने से थोड़ी होगा. बनाने की ज़रूरत है ना. अब बनाने के लिए आपको कुछ सर्टेन टूल्स की ज़रूरत है, तो वो अप्लाई करने पड़ेंगे. और साथ साथ में इतना प्रैक्टिकल भी होना पड़ेगा. नाउ यू कैन नॉट टेक आउट अ सौराष्ट्रनी रसदार and say that I want to make something on Jhaverchand Meghani's creation. In today's time, if you make that, you will have to have a great budget. But can you mold into something, you can adapt it into contemporary times, still stick to it. So that is one approach. Otherwise, there are other set of people who will always feel that, oh, since you are, you have not read enough, and there are such intellectuals who would say that you have not read enough, and it's not as good as the original piece of work or as good as the literature. It was never meant to be as good as the literature. Literature is literature. I wanted to adapt it into cinema. तो सिनेमा में मेरा इंटरप्रिटेशन आएगा. अगर मैंने जैसे ही लिखा है वैसे के वैसे बना देना है तो मैं बनाऊँ ही क्यों? तो आप पढ़ ही लो ना. तो वो समझ भी नहीं है. तो एक तरफ एक क्रिटिक पूरा अप्रोच है. कि बुक हाथ लगाने से पहले एक बार फिल्म मेकर सोचता है कि कितने लोग मुझे गालियाँ देने वाले हैं कि वो किताब के जैसा नहीं है. किताब के जैसा होना ज़रूरी भी नहीं है. और जो लोग ये समझते हैं कि उसको किताब के जैसा ही होना ज़रूरी है, तो मेरे को लगता है कि वो उनको माध्यम नहीं समझ में आ रहा है.
That's where I think movies like Omkara and all that, right, from Vishal Bharadwaj, I mean, great adaptation from literature.
Great adaptations. Most of your best Hollywood films are been adapted from work of literature because they adapt. They don't just literally make.
Most of the contemporary movies are based in the urban pockets, right? The plots revolve around the urban pockets. You know, the entire, I mean, all the characters are based in, let's say, you know, Ahmedabad or Baroda. Those kind of movies are being made. Why can't the urban movies be based in the heartland of Gujarat, the real Gujarat?
It can be. It can be.
So why very few movies are being made? Is it difficult to make those kind of movies?
No, it is not. It's rather easy. When we made Vitthal Tidi, we went to smaller villages near Gir and Junagadh. And we were like, we didn't call those village names by village names. Just we shot in Rampara. It's a village in Gir. We shot in Lushana. Again, a village in Gir. We never called Lushana. We called them Studio Lushana. You know, what I mean is that
The whole village is your studio.
whole village is to you. People are so warm. They want to give you the locations. They invite you over dinner, over lunch, over tea, coffee, whatever. So it is not difficult. And I do not find any rational in this debate that why aren't Gujarati films being made out of rural pockets. अरे मुझे अगर रूरल समझ में आएगा तो मैं रूरल बनाऊंगा. मुझ पे थोपो मत कि यार तुम जीन्स में डाल दिया तो उसको अर्बन बोल दिया. मेरे को जो समझ में आएगा वो मैं बनाऊंगा. और फिल्म मेकिंग एक डेमोक्रेटिक मीडियम है. सो यू कैन नॉट टेल मी दैट ओके urban Gujarati films are supposed to be from villages. No, if I understand and if I want to make a film, if a story from that region touches my heart, hello, who would call it an urban Gujarati film? Okay. And mind you, but urban Gujarati film was a marketing gimmick used by me only for Kevi Rite Jaish. And I have left it there. After that, I've never used that word. Not even in Bay Yaar.
The industry carried it forward.
I don't know who carried it forward, but I didn't care about it. Because it was a marketing gimmick. While making, I never proclaimed that चलो let's make a urban Gujarati film. ये क्या होता है? ऐसा कोई सोचता नहीं है. ठीक है, बट अगर आपको कहानी रूरल की समझ में आ रही है, आपको वो कहानी टच कर जाती है, तो आप वो बनाइए. इसमें रूरल और अर्बन कोई ज्योग्राफिकल बाउंडेशन या नहीं है. लैंग्वेज का भी कोई बाउंडेशन नहीं है. सिनेमा की अपनी खुद की लैंग्वेज है. कई लोग लैंग्वेज नाजी हो जाते हैं. कई लोग बोलते हैं कि यार नू नહોતું બોલવાનું ને હું બોલવાનું તો આ છે તે છે. અરે યાર, સિનેમાની પોતાની લેંગ્વેજ છે. એના કેરેક્ટરને જે ભાષામાં બોલતા આવડતું હશે એ ભાષામાં બોલશે. અને જો એ ભાષામાં એ મિસ્ટેક કરશે તો એ કારણ કે એ કેરેક્ટર એટલું જ સમજે છે એટલા માટે ભૂલો કરે છે. અને બધા તો શુદ્ધ ગુજરાતી બોલતા નથી થઈ ગયા. અને ગુજરાતી શુદ્ધ હોતી પણ નથી એક રીતે. બધાની પોતપોતાની ગુજરાતી છે. તો બધા પોતપોતાનો ઇન્ટરપ્રિટેશનની ગુજરાતી બોલે છે. તો આ બધા પ્રકારના જે બેગેજીસ છે ને, અર્બન, રૂરલ, લેંગ્વેજના શુદ્ધિકરણ, આ છે તે, આ બધી જ વસ્તુ આપણી ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીને બહાર પાછળ ખેંચે છે. કે લિટરરી એડેપ્ટેશન, અર્બન રૂરલ ભાષા, અરે બનાવવા દો ને. આ એક ડેમોક્રેટિક મીડિયમ છે. તમારે જે બનાવવું એ બનાવો. તમને જે યોગ્ય લાગતું હોય એ બનાવો. બાકી જવાબ તો ઓડિયન્સ પોતે આપી જ દેશે.
Abhishek, I have a lot of Marathi friends and they really celebrate Marathi movies. You know, they are always in anticipation of great Marathi movies, you know, which are about to get released. So the kind of competition we face with the Hindi cinema or the South cinema, I don't think they face, you know, equally great competition, probably because people are more used to going to watch Marathi movies in theaters. Do you think that is one of the major problems with Gujarati film industry, that we always compete with great Hindi movies?
It is certainly one of the factors that is pulling us back as business. But if you talk to me about competition, every language today, every language film has got a competition because the mediums have increased. You know, so people nowadays get entertained in 15 seconds on reels, and they get to swipe, cut. You know, in a film, when you go and watch the film, it is like, what am I watching for the longest time? To be very honest, when I saw this film recently that got released, Animal, I saw these are extended glorified reels.
Very nicely put. Yeah.
So some TikToker who got budget to make a film and a star to deal with, and they were like montages, you know, in our technical language. There was one scene, then there is another scene, then there's some another scene. So I feel that, and that is why also the film worked. Because look at the consumption of people now. They just want to move on, cut. And then there is a bedding of a story, which is not there. I mean, which is not wrong. So the bedding of the story is there. And then there are these scenes and sequences which you get fascinated. So he is not giving you thrill. only focusing on the entirety of 3 hours, 20 minutes. He is giving you thrill with every scene. So that is where the competition has come to. So it is not about any language competition now. The competition is about the mediums. So people are consuming it on reels. People themselves are entertainers nowadays. So there was this one entire chunk of only entertainment seekers and entertainment people, right? People who used to entertain. Now everyone is entertainment seeker and everyone is an entertainer. So how do you kind of gauge your audience? With Gujarati language, now I would say the audience has increased massively. In 2012, when we released films, there were like 6-7 films that came out, and hardly 2 or 3 were in the multiplexes. And when I'm saying multiplexes, there is nothing against single screen cinemas, but actually single screens do not even exist today. But what I'm trying to say is that those were the films that people went there and paid 200 rupees for. In 2022, Gujarati films made more than 100 films, so which got released. So look at the number 4, 6, 4, say 10 films, and now 100 films. So there is a huge jump. How many films work, how many do not work is another question. But this huge jump is because there is an audience. People want to watch films in their own language. If you give me a film in my own language with the kind of people I feel that they are just around me, I would first watch that. So that has now become privilege. So I go by this one philosophy that something that was a luxury or leisure back then is a privilege now. So वो पहले कहते थे ना कि किसी के घर में लिफ्ट हुआ करती थी, ठीक है, अरे यार आपकी बिल्डिंग में लिफ्ट है. अब क्या हो गया कि बिल्डिंगों में लिफ्ट तो है, अरे यार आप सीढ़ी चढ़ के जा सकते हो, क्या बात है. तो फैसिनेशन बदल गया है. तो इस तरह से हमारी लैंग्वेज में फिल्में बन रही है ना, वो हमारे लिए फैसिनेशन हो गई. दे हैव बिकम एक्सोटिक एक्सपीरियंस फॉर अस. हे आई वेंट टू वॉच अ गुजराती फिल्म. हे डिड यू सी दिस मलयालम फिल्म? People are not talking about Bollywood film. People are not talking about, some people are definitely talking about Hollywood film. But people take pride in talking about their own regional language films. That is what we need to tap into.
You have a very, I would say, comprehensive view about the industry because you also work in Bollywood. You also have seen cinema. You also, I think, briefly worked, with South creators, right? So you could see this industry both from inside and outside. So you would know better what are the challenges that we are facing, which is hindering the growth of the Gujarati cinema.
See, I think intent is definitely, as I mentioned earlier. Second is over budgeting, overpricing any film. Third is people are not trying to. So what is happening is that people are latching onto their interest, then looking at the unified and the interest in totality. So उसको कहते हैं ना कि अपना स्वार्थ पहले देख रहे हैं. पूरी फिल्म का होल एंड सोल स्वार्थ नहीं देखा जा रहा, क्योंकि जब आदमी खुद का स्वार्थ देखता है तब पूरी फिल्म का स्वार्थ नहीं देखा जा सकता. मैं नहीं कहता हूँ कि आपका अपना स्वार्थ नहीं होना चाहिए, लेकिन सिर्फ आपका स्वार्थ नहीं हो सकता. सो लाइक ओवर प्राइजिंग ऑफ say technicians or cast members, you have to adhere to what is the budget of the film, what is the kind of audience that this film probably would cater to. That is what is going to define the amount of box office that the film would do. And then you keep on charging accordingly.
I've heard this is how the Bollywood movies are planned.
Absolutely.
So they have different cast options and then they calculate how much this cast would lead to the box office.
That is technically Excel sheet filmmaking. I do not believe in that. But what I'm trying to say is that you will not find a Shah Rukh Khan charging for a film like, say, Swades. Example, first karte hain. Or Paheli, or say, Chak De India, a hefty fee against what he would charge for a film like Jawan. And this is my presumption, okay. This is what everyone also knows in a way, that for a kind of film that you want to do, you need to adhere to the budget of the film and the audience of the film, so that the film can find the light at the end of the day. And so then there is some hope for people to make more such kind of films. This kind of understanding.
वो maturity नहीं है probably.
Maturity नहीं है. तो मैं जब कह रहा हूँ लोग अपना स्वार्थ देखते हैं, तो वो अपना अपना आकर के, जैसे मतलब वो होता है ना कि चलो एक पिटारा खुला लूट लो, उस पद्धति से, उस मेंटालिटी से आप काम नहीं कर सकते.
So I think it will evolve over the period of time as the industry matures. People will realize.
I hope so.
They'll understand the business and the craft both.
I hope we do not learn after making huge debacles. Mistakes is still okay. Debacles. This industry has been thriving since 80 years, but it has got its own ups and downs. In last 10 years, what I have seen being part of this industry, 12 years now, there is a consistency, there is an honesty, there is a certain amount of loyalty from the audience. We should not stretch the audience to that elastic point where they lose hope and again they take another 40 years to come back and watch films in your own language. That should not happen. So let's not collectively create debacle. Let's just, learn things from our own mistakes. So there are many such challenges. I mean, the challenges, there are more inner challenges than challenges outside as a fraternity. There is no unity. There is a lot of irshya bhavana, jealousy. I have seen people getting into premieres of Gujarati films and they come out of the premiere, they see the filmmaker and they would appreciate the filmmaker and say, વાહ વાહ ક્યા બાત હે ક્યા બાત, અરે આ તો આવું છે ને આ તો આ લેજેન્ડરી છે ને આ બોક્સ આવું બધું કરશે. એના અડધા કલાક પછી આ જ વ્યક્તિ એક ડિફરન્ટ સેટ ઓફ પીપલ જે મેકર્સની સાથે કોઈ લેવા દેવા ના હોય, એક ચાના ગલ્લે કે ક્યાંક ઊભા હશે and he will be abusing the film. So why can't we critique our own films? Why can't we have a set of filmmakers who sit together and say that boss ये क्या कर रहा है तो अगर कुछ ऐसा करे तो we can help each other ना. What is the competition? If you look at it from a very objective view, we are like dust particles.
It's a very tiny industry. I mean, if you compare it with
Nothing. We are nothing. The gross that we made in 2023 was 63 crores of the whatever 100 number of films that we released. मतलब आप क्या हैं? तो क्या हम एकजुट हो करके, इकट्ठा हो करके, एक दूसरे के अच्छे क्रिटिक बन करके फिल्में नहीं बना सकते हैं? बट उसमें फिर लोगों को ये कि आपका कैंप है, न इसका कैंप है, न उसका कैंप है. मतलब पता नहीं यार, everyone's thought of this like a business. And I tell you, if you think that films are great business, then you're making a mistake at that moment. because દૂરથી ડુંગર ઘણા રાણિયામાં લાગે, બરાબર છે, પણ એ છે ને એવું નથી. તમને આ ખરેખર હું કહું છું પૈસા તો કમાવા જ જોઈએ, તમારી ફિલ્મે પણ પૈસા કમાવા જ જોઈએ, પણ પૈસા જ માત્ર કમાવાના છે એ ઇન્ટેન્શન તમે ફિલ્મ શરૂ નથી કરી શકતા. And I feel in today's time, in the universe that we are, every business has to have a noble cause attached to it. If you do not have a noble cause, you will come and go, no one will even know. Like there are huge, large corporations. They come up, obviously they want to make money. They're not here to do charity. But they come up with noble thought. Like for example, a Reliance would say that I want to employ 1 million people in this country. Now that's a great noble thought. मतलब 1 मिलियन लोगों का घर का चूल्हा जलाने की जिम्मेदारी वो ले रहा है, वो धंधा कर रहा है, उसकी कोई गलत बात नहीं है. उसी तरह से क्या हम एक नोबल कॉज के साथ में गुजराती फिल्में नहीं बना सकते एज अ फ्रेटर्निटी? हम क्या कर रहे हैं, एक दूसरे को नीचे उतारने में लगे हुए हैं. तो मैं तो मतलब कई बार देखता हूँ दूर से लोग हंसते होंगे हम पे, हमारी मजाके उड़ाते होंगे, कैसे बेवकूफ लोग हैं यार ये लोग, क्या कर रहे हैं ये लोग. और what is this kind of leg pulling that is happening? Let's just push each other, help each other.
I would agree to this frenzy of getting into the movie business. A lot of developers, a lot of people with big money, they always have this fascination being closer to the to the glamour and the the novelty of being around the people who are into the movie business. So a lot of money is getting into this. It's probably more than the appetite of the industry that can digest, and I think that is what is affecting the industry and creating because then there's a pressure of creating content and the same thing gets repeated. The content quality gets affected ultimately because the intent is not creating an art. The intent is creating a product which they can sell.
Which is right. I don't find anything wrong in it. Through your art, you're creating a product which is going to sell. A painter paints. He wants that painting works, it sells. A film has been made, you want that it reaches out to the maximum amount of deserved audiences. That is not wrong. And since years and decades, film industry have operated like this, not only in India, across the globe, where there are people who come with some cash load of money and then they want to promote your art, which is not wrong. But fend them right there. Don't tame them or not let them tame you. And mind you, there is no glamour. When my dad, when I got into films, my dad was like, oh, it is a glamour industry, what will happen? Ye wo. Main bola, theek hai. Time will tell. I invited him on the set of my film and he saw us working like dogs, like donkeys rather.
ये तो मजदूरी है.
12 घंटे की मजदूरी, खड़ा ही रहना है यार. मुझे वेरिकोस वेन्स हैं, ठीक है, मुझे लोअर बैक प्रॉब्लम है, मेरे बाल झड़ चुके हैं, मुझे एंग्जाइटी इश्यूज हैं. ये सब इसीलिए क्योंकि एंड देन व्हेन यू आर शूटिंग यू डू नॉट टेक केयर ऑफ योर हेल्थ प्रॉपरली, एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट इज बिकॉज वी आर वर्किंग, वी आर स्लॉगिंग 12 आवर्स. तो कहीं नहीं गए. वो देख के मेरे पिताजी ने बोला कि नहीं बेटा, इसमें कोई ग्लैमर है नहीं. तो हाँ, वो सब दूर से दिखता है. अगर लोग ऐसा सोच के आते कि इसमें ग्लैमर है, मैं आ जाऊँ, तो क्या ग्लैमर की आप बात कर रहे हैं. So there have been instances where Gujarati people around me tell me that अरे गुजराती फिल्म में तो ऐसा वैसा होता होगा ना, ये होता होगा ना, वो होता होगा. क्या तुम्हारे पास पैसा है ना, समझ लो तुम्हारे पास 1 करोड़ रुपया है और तुमको ग्लैमर के पीछे खर्चना है, तो तुम बेवकूफ़ हो के गुजराती फिल्म बनाने के पीछे खर्च रहे हो. तुम करोड़ रुपए को 10 में डिवाइड करो ना, हर रोज़ रात को 10 लाख खर्च के तुम 10 रात तक अच्छे मज़े कर सकते हो. तो क्यों 1 करोड़ रुपए डाल के एक जगह मज़े करना है, if that is the only intention.
All right. Okay. So now let's get to the technical discussion of movie making. Abhishek, I read your post about the catharsis of filmmaking. How beautifully articulated. Right from conceiving the idea to giving birth to the characters. To going through the whole process of making the movie, and then after release, the detachment and pursuing something, for better creation. Right. It's phenomenal process that a filmmaker or any creator of art would go through. Right. So expand on it. Help us understand the mindset of a filmmaker.
I'm from a film school, and I have not all my life. I've been here, studied here, and then went to film school. So film school was a new opening for me in my life. It became like a window for me, and I found my spiritual calling in filmmaking. So all these posts and essays that I write is purely out of my spiritual journey in filmmaking. So होता है ना, कई लोगों को अपना अध्यात्म या अपना मेडिटेशन जो है अपने कई अलग अलग ज़रियों से मिलता है. कोई व्याख्यान सुन के समझते हैं, कोई लोग काम करके करते हैं. मुझे लगता है मेरी स्पिरिचुअलिटी मेरे सिनेमा के माध्यम से है. तो मैं कई बार बस बैठे बैठे सोचता रहता हूँ. This is not coming out of any kind of so-called anger, or it is pure churning of thoughts in my head. The last post, which was about catharsis, and of lately, I don't know, I have been started posting a lot, which I am not very
No, continue doing that.
regular. And I think these are essays. I've read Andre Bazin. He's written some essays on films and cinema. So, and I also read letters or essays that Satyajit Ray has written, and a lot of other filmmakers, So and Truffaut has written. So when I read these letters, these essays, I find there is a unique voice that these filmmakers have, and they have a unique interpretation of the medium called cinema. And in that same lines, I do have my own interpretations about cinema. So the last post was about catharsis, is because I'm going through the post-production of my film, Maran. And suddenly one day, I was very restless, because, a film is like a baby to you, and it has taken life, it has taken birth, it has taken life, and it has its own life. तो कैसे एक माँ बाप का अपने बच्चों के साथ में प्यार तो होता ही है, उतना ही गुस्सा भी आता है. तो कई बार आप चिढ़ भी जाते हो अपने ही बच्चों पर. उस तरह से मैं उस फिल्म से भी चिढ़ गया कि यार और कितना है यार, अब तुझे और कितना अटेंशन चाहिए मेरा, तू जा ना, अब अपनी ज़िंदगी जी ना, अब तू हो गया 18 साल का, अब तू अपनी ज़िंदगी जी सकता है. तो उस तरह का एक कॉन्वर्सेशन था मेरा और मेरी फिल्म का अपने आप के साथ में. तो उसमें मुझे ऐसा लगा कि यार वो फिल्म मुझे थोड़ा ज़्यादा दुख दे रही है, मुझे सता रही है. तो मैंने ऐसा बोला कि यार आई जस्ट वॉन्ट टू गेट रिड ऑफ यू. होता है ना, माँ बाप बोलते हैं अपने बच्चों को यार तू चला जाए यार. वो उस समय के लिए, फॉर दैट मोमेंट यू टेल दिस टू योर बेबी, राइट. सो इन द सेम वे आई टोल्ड दिस टू माई फिल्म दैट यू नीड टू नाउ फाइंड योर ओन लाइफ, नाउ स्टॉप पेस्टरिंग मी. तो वो पोस्ट प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस में, because post-production process is so slow, or rather I do it very slowly. I go back to my edit again and again, find new interpretations. I write a completely new story or a film when I'm doing my post-production. So it kind of bothers me. It gives me pain, equal amount of pleasure also. So I was like, what is it? I wanted to tell this to my film. And that's why I wrote this, that, you have got your own life. You are going to die in my hands. I will bury you the day film gets over. The DCP, as they say, the DCP copy is made. I will bury you. And that will be my final farewell to you. Post that, you have to now take a birth, that's sort of a rebirth, in some other family, with some other people, and live with them. And whether you live for long or for short is your fate, you know. तो वो ऐसा है. तो मेरी फिल्म बस अब खत्म होने आई है और मैं उसको बरी कर दूंगा, तो उसका अंतिम संस्कार हो जाएगा टेक्निकली.
Such an emotional dialogue between the filmmaker and the movie. I mean, this dimension audience would never know.
And so I wanted to just express this to my film, that now go, please. I'm done with you. So you need to now go and take your new birth. And that birth is what? That birth is amongst the audiences. Like Kevi Rite Jaish died on the 14th of June in 2012. From my hands, I buried the film. That was my baby. And then it took a rebirth. It became someone else's baby. And that became Gujarati audience's baby. And it is still living. It is living more than that I made it live. So I lived with that film for 2 years. Now it has been living since 12 years. So that's the fun of it. So that dialogue is what that post was all about.
Take us through the journey of filmmaking, right from the conceiving of the idea to the scripting, to the shoot and the post editing. For a layman, how does the process work and what each stage requires in terms of time and efforts? Very briefly, if you could explain.
हर आदमी, लेमैन की भाषा में अगर बोलूं, हर रोज़ जब आप अपने घर से बाहर निकलते हो या घर में भी हैं, तो हर रोज़ हम तक इन्फॉर्मेशन आती हैं और उस इन्फॉर्मेशन से हमारा माइंड और हमारा दिल जो है वो रिएक्ट करता है, घृणा से, खुशी से, गुस्से से, रो करके, किसी भी तरह से. आपने कोई न्यूज़पेपर खोला और आपने किसी एक ओल्ड कपल के बारे में पढ़ा जिनके घर में किसी ने चोरी की और चोरी करते वक्त क्योंकि ओल्ड कपल रिटेलिएट किया तो उसने उनको ब्रूटली मार दिया. और अब उस ओल्ड कपल की मौत की खबर हमें 4 दिन के बाद पता चलती है क्योंकि उनकी शव की बास पड़ोस तक आने लगी. अब अगर ये न्यूज़पेपर का आर्टिकल है, आप एक लेमैन, आपने पढ़ा, आपको उस समय क्या फील हुआ? उस फीलिंग के साथ
You feel anguished.
यू फील सो पिटी कि उस ओल्ड कपल के बच्चे कहाँ हैं. तो आप अपने दिमाग में कहानी बनाना शुरू करते हो कि उसके बच्चे शायद अमेरिका में होंगे या उसके बच्चे पास में ही होंगे लेकिन बोलते नहीं हैं उससे. कुछ ऐसा होगा, सामाजिक परिस्थिति होंगी, जो भी होगा, बट ये बात आपके दिल में घर कर गई. अब आप निकलते हो, गाड़ी चला करके ऑफिस जाते हो, रास्ते में जाते वक्त भी आपके दिमाग में ये बात चल रही है. अब अचानक से हर रोज़ ही आपको सिग्नल पे कई तरह के लोग मिलते हैं, लेकिन आज सिग्नल पे एक ओल्ड कपल देखने को मिला और आपको तुरंत ऐसा स्ट्राइक हो, क्या ऐसा ही वो कपल हुआ होगा? हर रोज़ ही ऐसे कपल निकलते होंगे, बट आपको आज अचानक से कुछ और महसूस हुआ. ये जब तक जितना बढ़ता रहता है, जितना जिंदा रहता है, उतना वो कहानी आपके अंदर घर करती रहती है. और फिर आप में एक अर्ज होती है कि मुझे ये कहानी कहनी है, मुझे लोगों तक ये बात पहुंचानी है, मुझे जो लगा है, मुझे जो असर किया है, वो मुझे लोगों तक पहुंचाना है. तो या तो आप किसी दोस्त को फ़ोन करके बोलते हो, घर पे आकर के अपनी वाइफ को बोलते हो, अपने पिताजी के साथ में शेयर करते हो, बच्चों के साथ में शेयर, किसी के साथ में करते हो ना. फिल्म मेकर वही करता है, अपने परिवार के साथ में शेयर करता है. उसका परिवार कौन है? उसका ऑडियंस है. तो वहाँ कहानी शेप लेती है. बात वहाँ ख़त्म नहीं होती है, क्योंकि अब आपको अगर कहानी कहनी है तो मैंने जैसे कहा कि क्राफ्ट आना शुरू होता है कि फिर कैमरा आएगा, फिर मतलब आप सबसे पहले उसको लिखोगे. लिखते वक्त आप लोगों को इमेजिन करोगे, तो कास्टिंग हो रही है. आप सोचोगे कि ये कहानी को जस्टिस देने के लिए किस तरह का क्रू मुझे चाहिएगा, किस तरह के टेक्नीशियंस चाहिए. तो जैसे क्रू इकट्ठा हुआ, उन्होंने फिल्म के लिए काम करना शुरू किया. फिर हर एक बात को एक सीन में तोड़ा जाता है, उस सीन को शॉट में तोड़ा जाता है, और उस तरह से शॉट दर उस थॉट इतना सा है, बट वो कैसा एक एलईडी टीवी जैसा है जिसमें छोटे पिक्सल्स होते हैं. वो छोटे पिक्सल्स जो है ना, वो हमारे छोटे शॉट्स हैं, और वो टीवी का स्क्रीन इतना है, तो आपका थॉट इतना है, बट उसमें छोटे शॉट्स हैं, वो एक कहानी को पूरा बांधते हैं और वो आप कहते हो. मतलब ये मुझे पता नहीं है, दिस इज द शॉर्टेस्ट वे आई कुड एक्सप्लेन व्हाट फिल्म मेकिंग इज ऑल अबाउट, बट इट्स अ वेरी टीडियस प्रोसेस.
Okay, so what happens after the film is made? Everything stitched together, the movie is perfect, complete product. Now what happens next?
You release the film.
How? If you can very briefly also explain the process. So who does the film go to? So let's say Cinnamon Ride was a production house. After making the film, who do you go to distribute it? Because ये बड़ी क्यूरियोसिटी लोगों को रहती है कि यार फिल्म तो बना लेते हैं, लेकिन उसके बाद की प्रोसेस क्या होती है? फिल्म थिएटर तक कैसे पहुंचती है, नेटफ्लिक्स तक कैसे पहुंचती है?
तो आपको डिसाइड करना होता है कि आपको ये बात किन तक पहुंचानी है और किस माध्यम से पहुंचानी है. अगर आपको ये बात सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपने परिवार के, अपने सोसाइटी के लोगों को कहनी है, तो उसको रिलीज़ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. आप उसको या स्क्रीनिंग रखो अपने बिल्डिंग के कॉमन उसमें प्लॉट में। अगर आपको ये बात मैक्सिमम लोगों तक पहुंचानी है तो आप उसको हिंदी, इंग्लिश, गुजराती जितनी भी भाषाएं उसमें डब करो। अगर आपको कहना है कि ये बात सिर्फ गुजरात के ऑडियंस के लिए या गुजराती ऑडियंस के लिए है तो आप उसको गुजराती लैंग्वेज में ही रखो और उसको रिलीज करो। बट ये सारे माध्यम फिर आपको चुनने पड़ते हैं।
तो ये फिल्म मेकर का कॉल होता है कि मुझे एक ही लैंग्वेज में रखनी है कि मुझे मल्टीपल लैंग्वेजेस में डब करनी है?
मोस्टली वो प्रोड्यूसर्स का कॉल रहता है, क्योंकि प्रोड्यूसर भी इतना ही जिम्मेदार है एक फिल्म के लिए जितना एक डायरेक्टर है या अदर क्रू मेंबर्स। इट्स अ कोलैबोरेटिव प्रोसेस। सो प्रोड्यूसर ऑल्सो बिकॉज ही इज पुट इन मनी एंड ही ऑल्सो वांट्स द मनी बैक आउट ऑफ इट, तो ही विल डिसाइड वेयर टू रिलीज द फिल्म, इन व्हाट कैपेसिटी टू रिलीज, हाउ मच शुड बी द ऑडियंस, हाउ मच शुड बी वाइड द रिलीज बी, लॉन्ग द रिलीज बी, ऑल ऑफ दैट। तो एक स्ट्रेटेजिक कॉल है, बिजनेस कॉल है। लेकिन उसमें बीच में एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर आता है जो आपकी फिल्म को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता है। डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर इज एज सिंपल एज योर बिजनेस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स ऑफ FMCG प्रोडक्ट्स। एंड देन उसके बाद में एग्जीबिटर आता है जो दिखाते हैं। तो एग्जीबिटर जैसे डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर हुआ, उसके बाद रिटेलर होता है ना बिजनेस में, वैसे ही डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर, उसके बाद एग्जीबिटर।
These exhibitors are the theaters, the cinema.
थिएटर ओनर्स, करेक्ट, द सिनेमा ओनर्स। और वो फिल्म चलाते हैं, ऑडियंस आती है, पे करती है, फिल्म देखती है और फिल्म।
Yeah, very simply explained. Superb. Abhishek, in filmmaking, characters are very important. Characters are the lifeblood of any cinema or any content piece. And I believe some of the great filmmakers write their characters really well. For example, let's say Three Idiots, right? You would remember every character, right? Right from Rancho, who was the lead. You would also remember characters like Virus, Chatur, even Millimeter, for that matter, right? So they've written these characters so powerfully that they stay with you for life. If you talk about Chatur, right, that actor himself was not able to come out of that character for a very long time, and you could see the rub off of that character onto his lot of other characters that he played. So how do you as a filmmaker breathe life into characters? How do you come up with characters? Do you actively observe people and decide, okay, ये बंदे को मैं कहीं पे character बना के use करूँगा?
When story starts developing and brewing in your system, it comes to a stage when you start imagining your character also around you. And when you have to give a shape, size and form to that character, your life instances, experiences and observations come in place. Not every character is someone that you have met in the past. Not every character is also necessarily relatable to the people. मतलब अगर एक सीरियल किलर का कैरेक्टर है तो ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपने सीरियल किलर को ऑब्जर्व किया है, वो तो बहुत खतरे वाला काम हो सकता है। लेकिन हर इंसान में, because we have read Sigmund Freud and James Frazer and Joseph Campbell, so these people tell you that there are some common traits in every human being. Their need, their want, their socio-economic situation, their psychology and how they perceive at things. तो ये कुछ common चीज़ें होती है. So shaping of a character comes from a lot of your life experiences, from your observations, people around you. What you're talking about, like Chatur, is more about the caricature that he created out of his own language and the way he behaved. Now that is very external. But चतुर को हम उसके वो बिहेवियर की वजह से इतना नहीं जानते जितना उसके वो क्या कहते हैं, उसके वो एटीट्यूड के बारे में जानते हैं। उसका एटीट्यूड ये था कि मुझे पढ़ाई करनी है, मुझे अव्वल आना है। सो ही वॉज द एंटीथीसिस ऑफ द आइडिया दैट आमिर खान कैरेक्टर वॉज प्रमोटिंग, विच वॉज एक्सेलेंस। तो आई थिंक कैरेक्टर्स जो है ना वो बहुत सारी चीज़ों से बनते हैं। मतलब मेरे लिए कैरेक्टर्स ऐसे हैं कि कई जगहों पे जो मैंने पुरानी फिल्में देखी हैं वहाँ से कैरेक्टर आते हैं। कुछ लोग हैं जो मेरे लिए हीरो बन जाते हैं, जिनकी कुछ स्टाइल आइकॉनिक हो जाती है। कई लोग हैं जिनका एटीट्यूड मेरे को बहुत पसंद है रियल लाइफ में। कई ऐसे परिवार के लोग हैं जिनका एटीट्यूड मेरे को बिल्कुल नहीं पसंद है। तो द पीपल दैट यू लव, द पीपल दैट यू हेट, द पीपल एंड देयर स्टाइल दैट यू लाइक, द पीपल एंड द स्टाइल दैट यू डोंट लाइक, ये सारी चीज़ें comes and pours in to that experience of creating a character and giving a form and shape to it. But most of the cases, these are actors who live that character well. If your actor cannot live it, then what is it worth for you to even think of it?
And who contributes more to making of a character? Is it the director or the writer?
One cannot pinpoint. I think it starts with the writer because he creates the world around that character. It starts and then it's like a relay race, or rather a parallel race where the writer has taken a journey and now he joins, the director joins. तो फिर director उसका interpretation लेके आता है कि हाँ मतलब आपने जो लिखा है करेक्ट है, लेकिन मेरे लिए वो कैरेक्टर इस तरह से बिहेव करता है.
So the director gives it a visualization.
Visualization and also some more traits, and then comes the actor who brings in more traits from his own life experiences. So I think it has its own trickling effect or a collaborative process.
Often filmmakers grapple between the duality of art versus money, right? Cinemas need to make money, at the same time cinemas need to be artistically good, right? So how do you as a filmmaker keep balance between two extreme forces?
I don't see that they are two extreme forces. I feel they need to marry each other. They can't be called North Pole, South Pole. They are the center of everything. So every art form needs money so that you can make more of that art form. If that is clear in your head, मतलब मैंने नहीं देखा है कि फिल्में बना कर किसी ने बहुत बड़ा महल बना दिया हो. इन द टॉप 50 richest people of the world consistently, there have not been filmmakers. करेक्ट, क्योंकि वो फिल्में बनाते हैं, पैसा कमाते हैं और उसी पैसे को फिल्मों में और लगाते हैं. तो पैसा becomes a subsidiary, but it is equally important. So I think they go hand in hand. The more better you make, it will probably have a better reach, and then you will have better money to make the next time. One cannot make a perfect film. No one makes a perfect film. ठीक है, which is good because you keep on learning, you keep on striving to make good films. But one can definitely make money sometimes with an imperfect film, and sometimes not make money with the so-called perfect film. तो वो शादी चलती रहनी चाहिए.
Do you look at your own films critically? Sometimes maybe this could have been done better.
Yeah, every time. I mean, every process. क्योंकि फिल्म मेकिंग इतना लंबा प्रोसेस है, उसका पोस्ट प्रोडक्शन भी इतना लंबा है कि आप हर मोमेंट पे उसको क्वेश्चन करते रहते हो. यार वो घर के बच्चों को हमेशा आदमी क्वेश्चन करता ही है. उसको हमेशा ये लगता है कि पड़ोस का बच्चा अच्छा है, तो वो बच्चों को टोकता रहता है, डांटता रहता है, कहता रहता है कि तू ऐसा कर वैसा कर. तो फिल्मों के साथ में भी यही होता है. तो आई एम अ क्रिटिक ऑफ माई फिल्म्स. आई डू नॉट वॉच माई फिल्म्स वंस इट इज़ रिलीज्ड, क्योंकि एज आई सेड इट्स बरीड एंड इट्स डन विथ. फिर वापस उसकी पुण्यतिथि रखो, उसका बार रखो, ये सब मतलब नहीं है. वो गया. वो कभी कोई दिखा देता है तो देख लेते हैं. कई बार आपकी फिल्म में आपको देखना इसलिए ज़रूरी है टू री इंस्टेट सम कॉन्फिडेंस इन यू. जैसे आई हैव बीन थ्रू अ पैच ऑफ लो वेयर आई वॉज इन एक्सट्रीम सेल्फ डाउट and I felt that I should probably quit filmmaking. This was not too far. This was in 2020, 2021, 22. अभी भी 2023 का भी कुछ फेज ऐसा रहा है.
Tell us more about that. It's an interesting dimension that you've just introduced.
It's part of a life that you feel at some point in your life. You feel a little low. You feel a sense of self-doubt. You need more of spiritual enforcement. So उस समय मेरे को ऐसा लगा कि I should go back and watch my films. Someone only told me that go and watch what you have done. अच्छा ऐसा तो क्या किया है. Then I actually watched few scenes of my films and I said नहीं यार, इतना भी बुरा फिल्म मेकर नहीं हूँ, फिल्में तो बना ही सकता हूँ, तो मुझे इतना नहीं सोचना चाहिए कि मेरे को फिल्में नहीं बनानी है. तो I only have gone back to watching my films just to bring myself back to filmmaking.
Does the success or failure of your movies affect you for the next project?
I can't say it doesn't affect. I am not that adhyatmically evolved enough. I have not become a monk. It does affect. But in what proportion does it affect? That is important. It should affect enough for you to bring about a change in yourself. You should be able to learn. For me, the success and failure is more about trying to find why it didn't work. What were the flaws that we had? What are the failures that we had? And how can we improve on that? Not that I am going to make a perfect film ever. मेरी कोई भी फिल्म perfect नहीं थी, ना वो perfect होने वाली है. I can tell that. But every time when I'm making a mistake, am I repeating the same mistake or not? That is important. I should not be repeating the same mistake. I should be creating newer mistakes so that I have newer learnings. तो वो intention रहता है. But it does affect. क्यों नहीं? आप मतलब at the end of the day, box office is the mark sheet that everyone needs.
That's the ultimate validation?
Not ultimate validation, not really.
One of the parameters of validation?
One of the parameters of immediate validation. Immediate validation. उसके बाद में कई फिल्में ऐसी हैं ना जो उस समय नहीं चली. अब आज देखोगे तो ऐसा लगता है वो उस समय नहीं चली, मतलब क्या रीज़न हुआ होगा, और अब तो देखो लोग अभी भी देख रहे हैं. रॉन्ग साइड राजू भी ऐसा ही है. पीपल डिडंट गो टू सिनेमाज टू वॉच दैट फिल्म अ लॉट, सो इट डिडंट डू रियली वेल, बट really well as in it did fairly well, not that it was a complete debacle, but Now people are watching a lot and they come back to me saying that Wrong Side Raju is a great film. It is. So that is just the immediate validation. But films are not made for that moment. तो जो लोग कहते हैं ना कि अरे 100 दिन में इतने करोड़, 5 दिन में इतने करोड़, मुझे लगता है हाँ ठीक है, वो उस वैलिडेशन का ज़्यादा भूखा नहीं हूँ मैं. मेरे को ऐसा है कि यार वो फिल्म बनी है ना तो वो चलती रहनी चाहिए और वो चलती है. Films are for eternity. One thing that Sanjay Gadvi told me, and he told me that Abhishek, film format में जब पहले फिल्में बनती थी ना, तो एक तरीके से ऐसा था, फिल्म फॉर्मेट इज दैट रील, ठीक है, तो फिजिकल रील्स, तो क्या होता था कि इट यूज टू गेट वोर्न आउट, बिगड़ जाती थी, जल जाती थी या खराब हो जाती. जैसे इंडिया की पहली फिल्म वो नहीं है इंडिया के पास, ठीक है, तो ऐसे कुछ ना कुछ वोर्न आउट हो जाती थी. तो क्या होता, इतिहास मिट जाता था. पर जब से डिजिटल मीडियम आया ना, इस साला इतिहास मिटता नहीं है. तो बेटर इट लिव्स फॉर एवर एंड समवेयर इन द क्लाउड इट इज देयर. सो बेटर मेक अ फिल्म दैट इज वर्थ living forever, because someone somewhere at some point, say 30 years, 300 years later, will stumble upon your film and watch, and if it is not worth it, then what is the worth of effort right now? So he gave a great lesson that way.
Abhishek, you mentioned about the box office numbers, right? And this whole frenzy that's been going on, for the last, I would say, 2-3 years, right? That after the movie releases, everybody's in that competition of showing bigger and better numbers. One day 100 crores, 5 day 500 crores, 10 day 1200 crores, and all that. I strongly feel that these numbers are made up, not always true. Sometimes I feel that if the movie has done really well, at least somebody like me would have gone and watched it. And movies that do extremely well, right? Sometimes I go and watch them twice, thrice, and even those movies are not, making numbers, the kind of numbers that we are, talking about these days. So are those numbers really true? I highly doubt.
See, I believe there is no smoke without fire. तो कुछ तो हुआ ही होगा. मतलब there is something that has happened, and the film has created some amount of rage in the audiences. Otherwise, I mean, if I release a film and no one is in the cinemas, and if I say that, "Oh, I've made 100 crores box office," then वो इतना खराब झूठ तो नहीं बोल सकता कोई.
No, but that was the case when Bollywood was reviving, through that journey. So there was a lot of anger against Bollywood, and people were celebrating South movies, the Bollywood movies. The shows were going empty, movies were flanking. So at that point of time, I think, the first movie which showed big numbers in, let's say, 3-digit crores, 300, 400, 500 crores, one of the movies from a very popular, in fact, the most popular production house, right, came, and they were throwing numbers which people who went and watched the movie were saying cannot be true because they could not see anybody around.
That is a very stupid thing. I'll tell you what. So the film releases in such a massive scale. इतने सारे स्क्रीन में इतने सारे शोज होते हैं कि हर शो की ऑक्यूपेंसी ऑन एन एवरेज 20-30% ही रहेगी. आप जब आंकड़े देखते हो आपको लगता है फिर हर शो हाउसफुल जा रहा है क्या? नहीं होगा ना वो. तो अगर शो लिमिटेड होते तो हर शो हाउसफुल जाता, बट शो ही इतने सारे हैं. मतलब दिन में कुछ एक ही सिनेमा घर में 30 शो अगर हैं तो ऑडियंस की भी देखने की कैपेसिटी है, बट वो 30 शो में अगर 30% कैपेसिटी है तो आप सोचिए कितने लोग जा रहे हैं. ठीक है, तो उस तरह से नहीं गेज किया जा सकता. मुझे लगता है नंबर के आंकड़ों के चक्कर में पड़ना नहीं चाहिए. वो एक मार्केटिंग गिमिक है. सही है, बुरा नहीं है. एनीथिंग विच इज गुड फॉर द फिल्म. प्रोड्यूसर का धर्म है अपनी फिल्म लोगों तक पहुंचाना. अब उसके लिए वो जो भी धर्म अप्लाई करे, that is all जायज़.
So you're saying those numbers may or may not be true in all cases?
There is no smoke without fire. They might be true, they might not be true. But what is wrong? If you feel like going, you go and feel. अगर देखो ऐसा है कि उन्होंने नंबर डाले तो किसी के लिए तो डालें. तो अगर आप वो आदमी हो जो नंबर देख के अंदर जा रहा है तो उसने आपका कॉर्ड तो टच कर दिया. अगर आप वो आदमी हो जो नंबर देख के जिसको फ़र्क ही नहीं पड़ता, अगर आपको जाना होगा फिल्म तो आप जाएंगे, तो उसके लिए वो नंबर नहीं है. जिसके लिए जो है वो है. इस तरह से तो आप कह सकते हो कि जब मैंने बोला कि अर्बन गुजराती फिल्म है तो वो तो यार अभी अर्बन थोड़ी हुआ है, तो गुजराती, ऐसा थोड़ी होता है. दैट वाज अ मार्केटिंग गिमिक. सो सेम दीज नंबर्स आर मार्केटिंग गिमिक्स, but you cannot claim it without doing anything to it. So that's why I'm saying there is no smoke without fire. So same way, if there was something urban in the film, that is why it was called Urban Gujarati film. The same way people are occupying the cinemas, that is why they are throwing numbers at you. And who doesn't do exaggeration in advertising and marketing? We are advertisers. We do exaggeration. So it is all जायज़. आपको जाना नहीं जाना आप पर है. आप अगर आंकड़ा देख के जा रहे हो तो फिर आपकी प्रॉब्लम वो है.
Abhishek, who are your all-time favorite directors in Indian cinema and why?
It's a long list.
A few names.
I think Satyajit Ray, Vishal Bharadwaj, Maniratnam, Vidhu Vinod Chopra, and a lot of them, yeah, a lot of them. Paranjit, Vetri Maran.
Okay. And what is so different about these directors?
I think they are all different. That's the thing, you know. They have their own voices. They have always tried to push the envelope of cinema somewhere.
If you were to decode a director like Maniratnam, what makes him really special?
I have done my thesis on in my director studies on. I mean, in my film school, they used to tell that you have to do a director study. So I've done that on Satyajit Ray. I've done that on Vishal Bharadwaj to an extent. Vishal ji didn't have that body of work back then. This is 2006. Omkar had released very recently, but 2006 or 7, I don't remember. But I think if you ask me about Maniratnam, I think his sensitivity towards the subject, the way he visually tells the story to you without being too pompous about the visual sense of the story, the visual language of the story. You can actually Maniratnam films. You cannot just see those films. You can also smell those films. You know, if you're watching a Rosa, if you're watching a Bombay, you can feel that sense that you are in middle of Bombay city and there is this riot happening all around. And in middle of the riot, there is this love story that is brewing. You can smell that. So I always say that Maniratnam films are not only to watch or hear, they're also to smell. So गुरु का वो गाना है ऐश्वर्या राय का, उसमें जो उन्होंने जूनागढ़ के बारे में गाना जूनागढ़ पे है, चोरवाड़. However, it was not shot in Chorwad. It's shot in South. But the way they brought rain, I could feel the smell of the rain, the petrichor that they say. And I could feel that this is how the નારિયેળી જે હોય છે જુનાગઢમાં, એ નારિયેળી એવી જ છે. એટલે એ તમને ફીલ થાય. તો મણિરત્નમ અલગ લેવલની ફિલ્મ મેકિંગ.
Right. And since you mentioned Vishal Bharadwaj, that you've done thesis on him.
Thesis નહીં, but director study.
Director study, yes. You can again decode Vishal Bharadwaj for us. Because he's another one of my favorite directors.
His sense of drama. His films have got a certain rhythm because also he's a music composer. He's a musician.
He was a music composer first and then he became the director.
He is, yeah. So he's a musician. So as I say, his films have got a certain rhythm sense, certain dramatic highs and lows. And the way he puts across that drama, they are large piece of music. You know, a Vishal Bharadwaj film, if it's a 3-hour film, it's not just a film. It's a 3-hour long musical piece, and which has got its high and low, crescendo.
He's very unconventional in his approach about everything.
He's too original about his approach. I won't say unconventional. He's too Vishal Bharadwaj about his approach. And he gives a damn about anything. He just makes a film that he wants to make. He tells a story that he wants to tell the way he wants to tell. And with that rhythm that he can bring to that film. Every dialogue every scene has got a rhythm. His characters have got a rhythm. The walk of their characters have got a rhythm. I don't know if you can actually just objectively draw a musical note from his films. You will actually end up making a book of musical notes out of his films. And I'm not talking about the literal music that is running in the background. I'm talking about a piece of music that he creates. Too rhythmic his films are. I can keep going on about Vishal Bharadwaj.
Okay, and what about filmmakers outside India, abroad?
See, I don't feel filmmakers inside India, outside India, but overall there are a lot of filmmakers. Kieslowski is one of my favorites. Massive influence of Wong Kar-wai in my life. Fatih Akin is a great filmmaker. Tarkovsky. There are so many of them. Aronofsky. But then... अरे यार बहुत सारे लोग हैं यार. गाय रिची मेरे को बहुत पसंद है. फ्रांसिस फोर्ड कोपोला, very interesting filmmakers यार. Very different filmmakers.
Abhishek, you have worked with the great Sanjay Leela Bhansali, right? You assisted him on Guzarish.
I was associate director on Sanjay Leela Bhansali films, yeah.
So how's the experience like?
I think he's quite a passionate person. And he's so passionate that his passion kind of, becomes very infectious, and everyone doesn't hold the same amount of passion. So sometimes there is conflict, because he is extremely passionate. The other person who's working with him probably is not that passionate about what his vision is. So that creates a lot of conflict. But I think, after Satyajit Ray, if someone has made a mark outside of India and taken Indian cinema globally in all senses of craft and art and aesthetics, that's Sanjay Leela Bhansali films. And this is not that I'm claiming. Ask anyone outside of India.
It's quite an established fact.
So everyone would talk about that. So I think, and personally, I've had a great experience because, one, obviously, it was quite a conflicting relationship that I have had in his office. But I think one thing to learn from him was about not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to, if you have visualized it, you want it. That's the amount of passion that he throws. And this was way back. Now I don't know how he is, but yeah, this is what I know of him from that time.
If you were to technically explain the difference between Gujarati movies, or let's say, the way of making Gujarati movies and the Bollywood movies, or let's say, movies from the larger industries, what are those major striking differences that you feel we should close the gap on?
The striking differences is the amount of professional people and the amount of professional setup that we have, one. Secondly, the fraternity that they have. By fraternity, it's a French word. Fraternity means close-knitness. People coming together for one bigger objective. Every filmmaker has their own objective, right? But all filmmakers together can have a bigger objective. So as a fraternity, how they operate, that is second thing to learn. Third, the kind of budgets that they devote to their films is something to learn. I mean, they put their budgets in the right place. I'm not talking about filmmakers who are giving hundreds of crores to one actor. I'm talking about they are exceptional people. I'm talking about the general industry. Okay, so the way they strike a right balance between the commerce of this art and the craft of this art.
So they're very judicious about where to allocate money.
Obviously, I'm not saying that there are no vices there also. हर लेवल पे हर इंडस्ट्री के अपने खुद के वाइसेस हैं, लेकिन मैं कह रहा हूँ कि कुछ कुछ अच्छी चीज़ें हैं लर्न करने को, सीखने को, जो हम सीख सकते हैं वहाँ से.
Abhishek, what are the films or series that you really liked in the last couple of years? If you just talk about the last year, what are the movies that you really liked?
There are a lot of films that I've liked, a lot of content that I've consumed and liked. I don't watch a lot of new stuff. I go back to watching a lot of stuff that I've already seen. But last year, two films that distinctively made a lot of impact, also to the Indian audiences and also to me, one was Animal, the other one was 12th Fail. My personal opinion about Animal is different, and my personal opinion about 12th Fail is different than the larger audience's opinion. Both the films have been grand success in their own way. But what I found common as a filmmaker, what was in for me to learn, apart from all the technicalities and all of that, was that the conviction of these two filmmakers was the key feature for the success of their films. Like, Sandeep Reddy made the film that he wanted to make and didn't care about anyone or anything and made the film. Same is with VVC. He made the film that he wanted to make and he didn't care about anyone. Otherwise, think of a film like 12th Fail. अगर मैं उसकी स्क्रिप्ट लेकर के आज की तारीख में स्टूडियोज में चले जाऊं with no VVC attached to it and the conviction of VVC attached to it.
By VVC, he means Vidhu Vinod Chopra.
Vidhu Vinod Chopra, yeah, that's how I call him. So, Vidhu Vinod Chopra, without Vidhu Vinod Chopra attached to that film, you take that film to any studio and these studio guys won't get it. You take to them and you tell them that, hey, I've got a film which is about a IPS aspirant and, he's attempting for the fourth time, but that's the limit. They can't attempt more than that. This is my pitch. And they say, hey, IPS aspirant, there is already a series, Kota Factory. Achha, I've based this film in Bihar, a guy who's coming from Bihar. He wants to know the Bihar story. Hey, you know what, I've got Vikrant Masi in it. He, who cares to go for a Vikrant Masi film? Let's do one thing. The film is good. Let's make it for OTT. But it is only Vidhu Vinod Chopra's conviction who, brought this film to this level. And I think that is the learning last year. Kind of also reinstating the fact that, If as a filmmaker you're convinced about something, go ahead and make it. Go ahead and make it.
And exactly how you want it.
Exactly how you want to make it. Because then दिल से जो बात निकलती है वो दिल तक पहुंचती है. तो मैंने भी ये मतलब ये मेरे लिए इसलिए पर्सनल लर्निंग है बिकॉज काइंड ऑफ फेज दैट आई हैव बीन थ्रू these two films have brought me back to come out of self doubt and feel that if you feel like telling this story, tell it with utmost intent and the way you want to say. There is no arrogance attached to it. There is only positive arrogance attached, if arrogance could be the word used here.
Yeah, I think conviction is the right word, as you perfectly put.
Conviction is the right word, absolutely.
As a filmmaker, you deal with a lot of different people. Right from the production house, the producer, right to all the people who add their skill sets to make the complete movie. Do the addition of people affect conviction of the filmmaker? I mean, is there a say from, let's say, production house or the producer or somebody else or the financer, right, in the way of making movie, right? So do their voices affect your conviction or perception or anything in the process?
It does. So everyone's got their opinion, and what you have to do as a filmmaker, what I do as a filmmaker, is try to gauge the intent of this person who's trying to bring some opinion. If his intent is for the betterment of the film, I would hear his opinion. But then also, the second filter is that whether I would want to do it that way or not.
Do we have enough freedom for filmmakers to decide whether to take somebody's opinion or not?
Yeah, it is upon you. How much do you want to listen to the other person? If you succumb to it, then you succumb to it. If you still can negotiate your way, and there is nothing wrong in it. If a producer says that, okay, you know what, I should put in a song here. Okay, great, because the producer wants, his intent is to sell the film. Yeah. His intent is that the film should reach to the masses. Not because he wants a song because he has got his eyes on some dancer in this. अगर वो इंटेंशन है तो उसको दूर रखो. लेकिन अगर उसका इंटेंशन है कि फिल्म को बेचने के लिए, फिल्म को लोगों तक पहुंचाने के लिए ये गाने की जरूरत है, ठीक है. बट अगर मेरी कहानी पे इफेक्ट कर रहा है तो हम बैठ करके नेगोशिएट करेंगे ना. गाना रखिए, कोई बात नहीं, आप गाना अंत में ला दीजिए, क्रेडिट्स में ला दीजिए, जो क्या कहानी को इफेक्ट ना करे, फिर आप प्रमोट कीजिए ना. So there could be ways of dealing with this, but you need to be sure that the other person's intent for the film is right.
So let's understand Abhishek a little better. How was Abhishek as a kid? Were you always this curious, enterprising, experimentative?
I don't know how I was as a kid because I cannot really go back and see, but whatever I heard from my parents and my family members in and around, relatives and all, I mean, I was a notorious child, is what I know. I was very mischievous child. I am very mischievous anyways. So it's just that where do you channelize your energy, it's up to you.
You made this movie Yaar, and I feel somebody who truly understands the depth of friendship can make a movie like that, right? So tell us about your friends. What kind of friends you have? How many very close friends that you can call?
I think as you grow older, you get into a circle of life where you kind of depart from a lot of your friends. So all my life I have had different set of friends, for different kind of places. Like your school friends would be different from your, cricket friends and all of that. I've never had like a huge palette of friends around me. Not too many of them. A very handful of them. Very handful as in 10 આંગળીઓ પણ વધારે છે એવું કહેવાય. તો બહુ ઓછા મિત્રો છે. પણ મને લાગે છે કે then your definition of friends start also changing. Like you find your friend in your partner, like you find your friend in your parents, you find your friend in some elder mentor, or there are different set of friends that way. So I have got different set of friends and different kind of dynamics of relationship with them.
You spoke about mentors, right? Who are your mentors? Who do you go to for guidance when you're stuck? Who do you go to?
I do not go to any one particular person. For different issues, there are different kind of people that I have, and I'm very blessed enough to have different kind of people. But I also go to my inner self a lot. I kind of the good part is that I'm aware about what is happening to me.
If you could name a few people that you consider mentors, your mentors.
So then there are different kind of people, like Joseph Campbell is one. There are books that really help me. I read, so books really help me find my inner self. They are the medium through which I go back to my own self and kind of self-mentor. So थोड़ा सिस्टम ऐसा बनाया है कि जहाँ तक लोगों तक जाने की ज़रूरत ना पड़े तब तक ठीक है. खुद ही अगर चेंज आ जाता है तो ठीक है. That's the part of learning.
You worked with Pratik Gandhi a lot. I think you've done 2 movies with him and 1 series, right? I met Pratik. So we were watching Wrong Side Raju in the cinema hall, and after the movie, the cast and crew was present, right, to meet and greet the fans. So I went up to him, very humble and very kind person. We were having a conversation, and then a lot of fans. Came up to him and he was like, "We'll carry this conversation later. Give me your phone. I'll enter my number." So he typed his number into my phone, and that's how my interaction with him was. Tell us more about Pratik, because people don't write a lot about him, but I think the audience should know the great actor that he is. And what I believe is that actors like Pratik come once or twice in decades of time, right? He's an ace actor. So tell us about your experience working with Pratik and how he is like, how he operates.
I can do an entire podcast on my love for Pratik Gandhi. So, I mean, अचानक से उसका नाम लेते ही चेहरे में चमक आ जाती है मेरे, और there is this fondness of not him as an actor that is there. That talent का अपना अपना नाप तोल होता है. But him as a human being, him as an inspiration, with the kind of life he has led so far, with the kind of principles he leads his life with, तो कई मायनों में वो मेरे लिए एक बड़ा इंस्पिरेशन है. एंड आई हैव बीन फॉर्चुनेट इनफ टू नॉट लुक अप टू हिम बट विथ हिम. Sometimes there are huge figures that you look up to, but you can't touch and feel them. But then there are figures who do not have to look up to. You just are with them and look together. You can put your hand in hand and talk about something. And most of the times we have not had deeper, longer conversations. It's just that the relationship is such that somewhere his presence, his name, telepathically also gives me a lot of energy and inspiration. I mean, बोलने को ऐसा सब बोल रहा हूँ तो ऐसा लगता है कोई संत बाबा है वो. ऐसा नहीं है. उसके काम से ज़्यादा वो व्यक्ति इतने विशेष हैं. His personality, his human side is very unique. And you also mentioned that his humbleness is quite unique. And he is like that. At least with me, and I know of people around him, he is like that to them, and he will always be like that. When I came to know that he's playing Mahatma Gandhi, I was so elated, so delighted, so happy that I still cannot, let the happiness fade away. It's been long time that I know of the news, but I'm just imagining him as Mahatma Gandhi, because Mahatma Gandhi for me is a huge figure. Like, if there is one iconic figure in India, that is Mahatma Gandhi. For whatever reasons, he's been the father of the nation, right? So if Pratik Gandhi gets to play Mahatma Gandhi, it's like I will get to see, meet, touch, feel, work with महात्मा गांधी. अभी बहुत बड़ी बात है, लेकिन उसका महात्मा गांधी प्ले करना मेरे लिए मेरी जिंदगी का एक आर्क पूरा होने जैसा है. एंड आई डोंट नो व्हाई. सो आई हैव बीन टेलिंग हिम दैट यू वर बोर्न टू प्ले गांधी. You were born in a family with a surname called Gandhi. You were born to do monologue, Mohan no Masalo, as Gandhi. And you were born to get that success in, 1992 Scam, so that you can work with Hansal Mehta. And you were born to work with Hansal Mehta on his next series called Gandhi. So this is all meant to be. And only Pratik Gandhi could be that special person who is meant to do all of this.
Wow, no, he's really sweet and a great actor, right? You also worked with Paresh Rawal, again one of the greatest actors of our generation, right? So tell us a little about him as well.
He's fun guy to work with. A lot of depth he has, lot of experience.
He's so effortless, is what I feel. Yeah.
He's so effortless. I was coming to that. He has got such great experience that he can adapt things like this, and he has no qualms in listening to someone who's got meager amount of experience than him. Like, he's a huge figure, right? And when I'm directing, I'm like nothing. I was making my first Hindi film. I've made some few Gujarati films. That's about it. I've been only 12 years in the industry. But back then I was only 10 years in the industry. But still, for him to be able to listen to me, to be able to do the way I would want him to do it, was talking a lot about his greatness. And he's a fun guy otherwise. तो वो ऐसा इधर उधर की बातें कर रहे होंगे, लगर वगर बात चलती હશે ને પછી આપણે કહીશું સર રેડી પટકથી આવીને he is into the character. And he's effortless. And he will do it rightfully with all justice to the character. He will discuss. If there is something wrong, he will let you know. So he's someone who holds your hand but doesn't walk ahead of you, walks with you. So, and sometimes actually let you lead also and walk behind you. He's that kind of man. I have a great experience. Fortunate enough to have worked with him.
In the same project, you worked with Rajkumar Rao as well, and I've got great respect for this guy, because the kind of struggle that he has had, and in a way, he introduced a new dimension, to the industry, that an actor, a lead actor, hero, could be vulnerable, could be weak, could be emotionally challenged inside, right? And that entire new genre of heroes started with Rajkumar Rao. So I think in a way, his introduction to the industry was transformative for the industry, right? So how was your experience working with him?
Actually, it was a great experience working with him. He's quite, as you mentioned, he's someone who's brought a change in the way people perceive at heroes. And he does his homework a lot. So it was a fantastic experience working with him.
So Abhishek, if you were to suggest a few movies and series, to the audience that you feel are great, or let's say if I'm a filmmaking student, what are the movies and the shows that you feel that I should really watch? If you can suggest to the audience a few names.
Oh, I've been fortunate enough to be part of a huge library that we have at Whistling Woods and watched a lot of films from everywhere around the world, including Indian, other languages films and all of that. But there is no one specific film that I can really recommend. But I can always recommend, if someone is very serious about pursuing film direction, then I would say that pick a filmmaker and watch all his films. Like how I did with Satyajit Ray. I started watching his first film, and that chronology of how he made films in the number of films that he made, I watched all of them in that chronology. Gets to you, it helps you know more about the director, the making of it, the brain behind it, the intention behind it. So otherwise, also, if you ask me off the cuff, I think Lagan is one of my favorite films, and if one has to watch a series, I think a limited series by Ava DuVernay, which is called When They See Us, is a very important film for the world. So yeah, and अभी recently मैंने भक्षक देखी, मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी. पुलकित ने डायरेक्ट की है, भूमि पेडनेकर और संजय मिश्रा उसमें, बहुत अच्छी है वो series. And there are a lot of other. I don't watch a lot of new stuff. I go back to a lot of older stuff again and again. I just don't know. I mean, I am very skeptical about watching something new unless I'm extremely excited. I would go back if I'm free and someone tells me, okay, Netflix चालू करके दिया है.
So do you wait for somebody's recommendation to watch something new?
No, not really. If someone recommends, yes, fine enough. But then I go back watching a lot of stuff that I have done because I find there is a lot new to learn from the same old stuff. So I would have watched Shawshank Redemption so many times. I would have watched, Fatih Akeen's film so many times, a Wong Kar-wai film so many times, a Satyajit Ray Guru Dutt film so many times. Just because every time I go back, I get to learn something new. और नई फिल्मों के साथ में क्या होता है कि एक नया रिश्ता बांधना पड़ता है. उतना वो खर्च नहीं सकता हूँ मैं अपने आप को. तो देखता हूँ मैं, लेकिन एज आम इंसान भी तो फिल्में देखता ही हूँ.
What's next for Abhishek? What legacy you want to leave behind?
What is next for me is making a lot of films. I think this year I want to release. So by release, I mean the overarching theme is to release. So it can be release of film, release of emotions, release of what is brewing in me as stories. So a lot of it that is this year probably is going to come out. It can be coming out in form of those essays, the short essays that I'm writing. It can be coming in form of shooting something, making some interesting ad films. So there is a lot that I'm going to release this year. And I don't know about the legacy and all. I don't believe too much in that. But I think eventually at some point in life, I want to get into academics. I want to share my experiences with people. Not that I want to become a professor or a teacher, but I want to get into a setup where people probably cannot afford to be enrolling themselves into film school. And if I can in any way possible help them, learn a little bit about filmmaking, I would love to do that eventually.
All right. Thank you so much, Abhishek. That was a very noble thought at the end. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. This is one of the best conversations that I've had with A lot of guests, that I usually meet, very rarely we find such nuances or technicality from a person, right? And you have been in a way, and I'm sure you are very humble and modest about this, but I feel you are, a pioneer in true sense, right? And sitting with you, having this conversation was a privilege for me, an honor. Thank you so much for accepting the invite and being here.
Thank you, Jay. I think likewise, because not many times I get to express myself very openly in those details. Sometimes it just becomes like a normal media interview, but this became very intriguing. A lot of new things that I got to know about myself while speaking. So this is the fun of talking to someone, and I hope I have done justice to the time. I I hope you get enough material for people to watch. Thank you so much.